2020 4-H Ontario project releases. So just Austin, I am the coordinator of programming and resources with 4-H Ontario, and it's just hopefully everybody can hear me okay. If not, for those of you who haven't used Zoom a whole lot, if you look along the bottom of your screen, there is a feature called chat, and if you click on that, it'll come up. I know on a PC it's on the right side. On a Mac, I think it might be in a different spot on the screen, but there is a spot where you can post comments. So if at any point you can't hear me, or if you have a question or anything like that, be sure to post it there for 2020. So I am going to be sharing my screen so that you can see the slides as we go along. There are a few activities as we go as well that we'll be using chat with, just to collect some answers as we go. So I'm just going to share here, and hopefully this will, everybody can see that. If for some reason you can't see the screen right now, you should be seeing a screen that says 2020 4-H Ontario project releases. So if for some reason you can't see that, just make sure you post in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll make sure that happens for you. So welcome to this evening. We're quite excited. Normally this would happen at CAM, but as we know, this year everything is a little bit different, and so we're releasing our new projects virtually. So there will also be an opportunity at the end of the presentation as well. I'm going to try and make sure that we leave a little bit of time that if anybody has any questions then as well, that we have a little bit of time for discussion. So, and we're going to try and focus this evening on these 3 projects in particular, just because two of them are updates and one of them is brand new for Ontario. So the first project that we're going to look at is the 4-H Ontario Plowing project. So we are quite excited and happy to receive funding through TSC, which is PV Industries is the company name, and they provided the support for us to be able to take this project and be able to update it. So this project was originally the last project that our members have been using for a number of years, was released in 1990. So it's been 30 years since we've been able to do an update on this project. And I'm just going to explain to you a little bit about the process that we use for developing a project as well, because it is a little bit of a lengthy process. We do have a number of steps that we go through when we either update or create a new project. It's a very similar process, no matter whether it's an update or a new project. So once we've received confirmation that we have funding and that we can go ahead, the first thing we do is with my position, I do some writing, and then we do also hire some contract writers as well for some of the projects. So with plowing, we did hire a contract writer. And then the next step is that we create an advisory committee that meets. So the advisory committee is usually comprised of people from the industry, as well as 4-H leaders who have led the project previously, and can bring that experience to the table, as well as myself and the writer of the project. So with this project, they met, looked at the project, took a look at what they liked, what they thought needed to be updated, anything new that needed to be added. And then the contract writer takes that, creates the structure of the project, comes back to the committee to make sure that we're on the right track. And then from there, the project writer writes the first draft of the project. The advisory committee then gets another chance to take a look at it. And then with every project, we like to try and do a piloting process with it, in which we have 4-H volunteers and leaders take the draft and try it out, test out the activities, look at the content, and then give us some feedback as to how well it worked. We take that feedback and then use that to create our final draft, of which the advisory committee has another look at before it goes to design. And then with our design process, we have a template that we follow. It was created by 4-H Canada, and with the idea being that every project will look similar and hopefully right across the country. So you'll see, and we've been using it for a few years now, so that all of our projects have that similar same look to them. Every meeting has objectives, has roll call as well as content, digging deeper, the at-home section or at-home activity section, and then activities. As well as throughout the meeting, there's call-out boxes as well, with suggestions throughout the meeting of things like guest speakers that you could potentially invite, or places to tour, or discussion points, or that maybe a judging activity might fit in just in that particular spot. So suggestions to help throughout the meeting, as well as some smaller activities throughout the meeting as well. So once the project has been designed, we're pretty much at the end of our process, and that's where we are tonight, when we have a design project that is ready to go and to be launched and used by all of our 4-H volunteers and members. So as I said, the first project that we're going to look at tonight is our plowing project. And I know when we first started this process, the question was actually asked, why are you updating plowing? Who plows anymore? But it is still quite prevalent within our agriculture industry, and some things have changed in the last 30 years. There were some parts of the project that stayed the same. Soil structure is still the same. It hasn't changed, but some of the equipment and the implements that are used have changed, and some of our thoughts around soil conservation have changed a bit over the last 30 years. So as with any project, and as we're finding out these days, is that sometimes we have to think a little differently about how we present some of our projects when we can't be in person. And so tonight we're going to touch on that with all 3 projects, and ways of hopefully being able to do some of this virtually. We know 4-H has traditionally been very hands-on, and hopefully we can still try and do some of that with our members at home, but we also have to look at how we do things a little bit differently with each of these projects. And with plowing, it's maybe a little bit more of a challenge than some of the other projects. But the hope is that with some of these, we can still do activities virtually and at least provide that foundation of knowledge, so that once we can get back together again and meet in person, that our 4-H members have that foundation, whether it's learning about soil and about the implements and the parts of them, so that when we get together, they have that knowledge to go forward with. So we're going to do a quick activity here. This is an activity out of the plowing project. It's activity number 22, and it's modified slightly for doing it online here. But this is one activity that we're going to use our chat box with. It could be used as a roll call. It's also used as a critical thinking activity. So the question that's being posed with this activity, and it's probably even a little bit more prevalent this year since we can't go to community activities right now, is that if you could only go to one community event per year, what event would you go to? And then give 2 reasons to justify why that community event in particular is the one that you would choose if you could only do one. So not quite ready to move on to that yet. So if anybody has anything to share, and this would be also a communications activity within your project. And when we design every single 4-H project, we're looking at including those core competencies and things like communication and judging and critical thinking skills. So which are 2 of the many core competencies that we include. So I am going to rely on Marianne, since with sharing, my laptop is not showing the chat again. So I don't know if anybody has anything that they would like to share with this activity.
Like Elizabeth said, you can just go to that chat box and type it in there, and I'm happy to share it on your behalf.
So I guess for me, the one community event, and I guess the one that we're going to be missing out on this year in our community is our own local agricultural fair that isn't happening this year in July. That would probably be my one community event that I would choose to go to if I could only go to one event, and that would partly because it is a celebration of agriculture in our community. And it's also a time of year where we get to see friends and family that we sometimes don't normally get to see.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. And Jaden had said that they'll be missing their fall fair and looking because they like to socialize and to learn.
Perfect. Yes, unfortunately, I think there'll be a number of us missing our fall fairs this year. So hopefully things will turn around for the later fairs this year. So thank you for sharing. And this is just one example of online of how people can give answers to some of our activities in just in a little bit different way and communicating in a different way. So with the plowing project, plowing is serious business when it comes to agriculture, but it can also be a really fun activity as well and satisfying experience. And within this project, it covers a lot of different topics within it. As I said, plowing, some people asked why we would do this project, but there are a lot of different types of plowing. When we think of plowing, we think of the typical moldboard plowing, and we know that doesn't happen as much as it used to, but there's actually been in the last few years a bit of a return to moldboard plowing for some farms where they're finding that they do want to work up that soil a little bit more, and compaction is starting to become a bit of a problem, and so we have seen a bit of a return to moldboard plowing, and as you can see in the bottom, it's just with the image there is that we also now have the introduction of the rollover plow as well. But there's also other types of plows as well, things like chisel plows and those sorts of things, and depending on the farm and the type. I know for me, I actually don't like moldboard plowing. I've done it. I'm not very good at it. I actually prefer the chisel plow, and maybe I don't have quite as much patience as I should, and I can cover more ground with a chisel plow. But this project looks at all those different types of implements that are used for plowing, as well as soil basics and those sorts of things, to have that foundation to know about plowing and modern tillage and soil conservation. And as well, the project does touch on competitive plowing as well. So looking over, this project is set up in a typical 4-H project format, in that it has 6 meetings. So the first meeting is getting to know you and just starting to learn about the basics of plowing. Moving on into meeting 2, they start to look at getting the plow hooked up and getting ready to go to the field. These first couple meetings also do focus on farm safety as well, and you'll see that theme throughout all of the meetings, but particularly at the beginning of the project, to make sure that no matter what we're doing within this project, that it's being done safely as well. And looking at the principles as set out by workplace safety, who govern the farm safety in Ontario here. So looking at meeting 3, that's when starting to head out to the field and looking at how the equipment works, and looking at soil as well. Meeting number 4 focuses maybe a little bit more on soil and on conditions for plowing, and whether it's time to plow, whether the field's ready, whether it's too wet or not, and also looking at what type of plowing needs to be done. Will a chisel plow work? Should it be moldboard plowed? Or is this the option for this particular year in that particular field, that maybe this is a year for no-till and not to be plowing? So lots of different options to look at, and this is what this meeting looks at. The next meeting number 5, just continues on with more plowing, more techniques, looking at that sort of thing. Also, this project looks at things like drainage in fields and that sort of thing as well. And then rounding out the project, and it's not necessarily, and we know as leaders are fantastic at picking the best parts of a project to suit the members in their club. And so this project also has a section that if members want to learn about competitive plowing, that they can, and what that looks like, what competitions are out there. And this project does have a bit of a connection with the county plowing matches and the international plowing matches, if the club so chooses to want to use something like that for their achievement day. But once again, it's totally up to each club as to what they want to focus on within the club. So that's kind of the plowing project in a nutshell. I know I'm going to be moving through each project fairly quickly tonight because we want to make sure that we cover each of the 3 projects, as well as leave some time for some questions at the end. So I'm going to move on to
Elizabeth.
project. Oh, yes.
Just before you move on there, we do have a question on the line, and is there a minimum age for this club, or can you take it without actually plowing?
There is no minimum age. You can be anywhere from 9 to 21 within the project. The leaders have the wherewithal to be able to choose what information that you use from this project. So we know obviously a 9-year-old is not going to be driving a tractor yet, but they can still learn about the equipment, about soil, and how plowing works, so that as they get older, that they have that foundation to be able to go ahead and in this project. So we don't put an age restriction on this project. Having said that, though, leaders do have the leaders can choose if they decide that maybe you do want to have this as a senior project. It is completely up to leaders for any topic, not just plowing, but for any project. If they decide that sometimes the content is maybe more suited towards senior members, and actually the next project that we're going to talk about actually is a little bit more of a senior project, that leaders, and it depends on your youth as well, as to their maturity level and what their interest level is as well. So I know there are leaders out there that do run senior projects, and it is completely up to the leaders as to what your comfort level is, as to what age range you have within your club. So hope that answers the question. So we'll move on, and we're going to look at the next project. And as I said, this is the leadership project, and even though it could be for any age, the recommendation with this project is that it is a bit more geared towards senior members. So there's nothing to say that we have a specific age range on this project. I know typically a lot of leaders look at senior members as being 15 and older, but there's nothing to say that if you look at this project and you think you have some younger members that would definitely benefit from this project and would do well in it, that there's nothing to say that they can't be in this project as well. So the leadership project is also an update of a project that we've had available for a number of years, and we were quite happy that the development of this project was made possible through the support of funding with the late William and Rhea Seath, who provided funding for this project. We once again, as I said, with the development process for a project, we went through the same steps with this project, having an advisory committee. We also had a contract writer for this project as well. And with this project, when we take a look at the project that was currently available, we take it, we look at it, and we decide what we like out of the project, what maybe needs to be updated, and what new things need to be added into this project. And as with each of our projects, our advisory committees are key. They bring a wealth of knowledge to the table, and it was the same with this project as well. They brought some great ideas to the table for our contract writer to go ahead and work with and create this project. And even though sometimes some of our projects, we call them updates, by the time we're done with them, sometimes they don't look a whole lot like the old project, in that we've been able to add so many more new things, as well as capture some of those great things that were in the original project. So with this project, it, as the title says, focuses on everything leadership. So there's a lot of different definitions as to what leadership is and what effective leadership is, and it varies with the situation in front of us as well. So this project really delves into the topic of leadership and what it means for each individual person within the project. So, and it really does focus on the fact that leadership is about helping to make everyone else do their best. And it's not focusing on just the single person, it's focusing on the task at hand and what skills and tasks make that great leader. So within this project, It focuses on a number of different areas. Things that looks at leadership skills or styles, which we'll take a look at in a minute, as well as communication. And then the opposite of, or not the opposite of that, but going hand in hand with communication is listening skills, which is equally as important. And then also collaboration, working as a group. So as we talked about a little, this project is designed a little bit more for senior members, but once again, we look to each of you as leaders to your group and your members best as to what is going to work best for them. So this project is also set up is a typical 6-meeting project. So meeting number 1, who is a leader? So introductory meeting and looking at different types of leaders and different skills that they have and what helps to make them be a good leader, as well as looking at leaders and that maybe haven't done as well in history and why they didn't do quite as well. So moving into meeting 2, it looks at meetings and me. So it covers quite a bit within meeting 2, looking at things like parliamentary procedure, which we know is also one of the core competencies within our 4-H program. And I know, at least for me in particular, the 4-H program really did solidify a lot of that and taught a lot of skills with parliamentary procedure. And then moving on into junior farmers, it kind of really solidified what parliamentary procedure was and how it works. And I know today now with being a part of other organizations, you really see how important that is. I know as 4-H members, sometimes parliamentary procedure seems not the most exciting thing to learn and talk about. But as you get older and you see how meetings can run really well using parliamentary procedure, you understand the importance of it, and you understand the importance of it even more when you see a meeting, and especially the bigger the meeting, the more it's obvious when the person that's chairing the meeting doesn't have a real good grasp on parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order, and how quickly a meeting can get out of control, and someone can lose control of that meeting, and sometimes, and I know for one meeting in particular I was in, actually ended up pretty much in chaos and losing complete control of a provincial meeting. So this meeting, it really sets some of that foundation. And this meeting also starts to look at leadership styles and leadership, different basic leadership styles. Moving on into meeting 3, motivation, what motivates people to be leaders, what motivates people in some situations not to be leaders, and the fact that not every situation you're going to be a leader in, and that depending on the situation, you may be the leader, you may be the follower. And there's a great video out there too that I've seen that shows that not everyone can be a leader in every situation, and if everybody was a leader, you wouldn't have any followers. So, and every situation is different depending on what's required. So then the project does move into communications and looks at all different types of communication. So things like public speaking and using microphone, those sorts of things are very key skills to learn as well, but also looks at other types of communication and body language and those sorts of things. And this is also where listening comes in as well, is being a very key communication skill, and that not talking all the time, but listening and knowing what the needs are is also very key. So this is a very big area, and it does cover over 2 meetings. And then the last meeting is exploring the future and where do we go from here with our leadership project, and where does each individual see themselves going as well, and taking the skills that they've learned within this project, taking them to the next level. Now, the other thing with this project that is new within Ontario is the last part of this project is the self-determined project. And so we, this is it right here, which you obviously can't see very well, but it is at the back of the leadership project, and all of our projects that we're talking about tonight are available on our 4-H Ontario website. And with the self-determined project, and it is something that definitely could be considered, especially right now with not meeting in person for 4-H meetings, is that this project can be done by an individual 4-H member. So the information that we have for this project actually originally came from 4-H in British Columbia. They do a self-determined project, and now we're excited that we have it here in Ontario as well. And the way this project, self-determined project works is that a 4-H member who wants to explore something, either a topic that we have in Ontario, but they want to explore it further, or there's maybe a topic that we don't offer a project for that they would like to learn more about, that they can through this project. So with the guide that comes with the leadership project, it helps 4-H members go through that process of deciding what it is really that they want to explore more. So looking at the activities that they're involved in, looking at the experiences they've had in life so far, looking at responsibilities that they've had, and then from there choosing what it is that they would like to explore more. And that knowing that with a 4-H project, we look to have 12 hours of instructional time, and we'd be looking for that same idea with this project, with the self-determined. So with this project, it does come with the project outline form, right, with the project. And this is what we ask our 4-H members to fill out. And things like looking at what their goals are for the project, what their plan of action is, not sure if that's me touching the screen. I don't know if anybody else sees blue lines on their screen.
No, I think that's the annotate function in Zoom. So I'll just ask if we can refrain from using that function.
Oh, okay. So no problem. I thought maybe I was touching some wrong buttons. So within the self-determined project, the 4-H member would fill out the outline, and then submit it in. And with this project, just like any other 4-H project, there have to be 2 leaders that look at the outline and that are going to be the leaders for this member to complete the self-determined project. So once the outline has been filled out and submitted into the 2 leaders and they've given their approval, then the 4-H member can move ahead with working on their self-determined project. And it could be any type of project that they're interested in. So it could be something that maybe they want to do within the community, some type of community project. It could be something that's maybe related to STEM, and that's some type of science that they want to look at, some type of theory that they might have that they want to try out and see if that will work, if their hypotheses, if they can determine that their hypothesis is correct or incorrect, something like that. So the sky's the limit on the self-determined project. Once the member has, if they feel they've completed what it is that their project was that they've set out to do, the guide also comes with a project self-evaluation. So looking at things like what they learned from the project, whether they followed the outline that they set out from the beginning, or did things change a little as they went. If they had the opportunity to do the project again, would they do something different? What were their key successes from this project? Did they develop new skills? Did they share some of the knowledge that they gained from this project? And whether they'd like to continue learning about this project even after they're done with this as a 4-H credit. So this is a new opportunity for our 4-H members to be able to try out, and also to work on their leadership skills as well, and somewhat like an independent study for school. It's an independent study with 4-H, with the guidance of 2 4-H leaders. When they're completed the project and they fill out the evaluation that I talked about, it gets submitted back into the 2 leaders that they have for that project. And if it's been completed satisfactorily to the leader's satisfaction, then they'll be able to get a credit for doing that project as well. So like I say, it could be anything. It could be if they're interested in the dairy project and they want to explore something further beyond what their dairy club was doing, then this would be an avenue to be able to do that. So that is for the leadership project. We did have, there is an activity in here, but I'm just going to show it to you. We're not going to actually do the activity this evening. But this does appear in the leadership project. It's the leadership questionnaire. So this is to help 4-H members determine what their basic leadership style is. So with this chart, and there's 2 pages of it, so I'll just move on to the next page. There are 35 questions that 4-H members would score themselves on. Then they figure out from there their number is for task skills, what their number is for maintenance skills, and then they would move on and look at this. So look at to see whether they, if they happen to be high maintenance but low task, they would fall into the participant, or to the participant group. So so looking at this, they can get a bit of an idea of kind of where their leadership style falls. And for some people, there might be a little bit of a crossover between two different leadership styles, but it does give them a bit of an idea of where they sit and what their style in particular is, to know how they can handle certain situations. So this can be found in the project. This is part of meeting number 2. It's activity number 2. On pages 25 to 28 within that project. It's one of the many activities that are available in this project to help guide our 4-H members through the process of learning what type of leader they are and how they can become an even more effective leader within this project. So I'm going to keep moving. We're going to move on to the third project tonight that we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to advance this here. And if anybody does have any questions, by all means, Marianne is monitoring things if there are any questions that come up. And like I said, we'll have a chance at the end as well to discuss any questions you might have. So the third project that we're releasing this year is our Canine project. And 4-H Ontario worked in cooperation with 4-H Canada to develop this project. The funding was provided by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and I was the writer for this project. So this was a really fun project to work on. As with some of our other animal and livestock projects, it is a fairly large project in that it's almost 300 pages long. There's a lot to cover when we're looking at animals and delving into everything about them. So looking at breeds and health and nutrition, and there's just so many different areas to explore, and there's just so much information that we can cover. And so within this project, it actually has more content than you would ever be able to cover within 6 meetings. And so this project could be done over the course of a number of years and cover different material each time that the project is ran. As with the other projects, there was an advisory committee with this project as well that provided a lot of great and very valuable information, things that I didn't know, even though I've been a dog owner pretty much all my life as well, and worked with animals my entire life. There's still an extremely large value in having that advisory committee, because they bring a very different perspective to the table as well. We had people from different walks that provided some great information. So within this project, it's obviously it's designed for dog lovers, but with this project, as with pretty much any type of livestock project, it's not always about the animal. And with this project, it was designed in mind that someone could take this project without actually owning a dog. And for some 4-H members, they've maybe never had a dog before, they're thinking about getting a dog, but they want to learn more about it. And this project is perfect for that. It's also perfect for those who do have a dog and want to learn more about it. It's also perfect for that 4-H member that maybe they're not able to have a dog at home. Maybe there's somebody in the house with an allergy, so they can't have a dog, but they're looking at going into a career that they're going to be working with animals. Maybe they want to work in a veterinary clinic or something like that, or they want to become a police officer and work in the canine unit. This project here will help give that foundation, and so we tried to keep in mind when designing the activities that for some of the activities that they don't have to have a dog in order to complete the activity. And it can also be a case of where at the meeting, if you're meeting in person, that you have one dog there and that not everybody's bringing a dog. It's once again completely the focus and the wishes of the leaders of this club as to what they want the club to look like. I know some clubs do want to have it that the 4-H members do bring a dog to each meeting and they are working with the dog. But this club doesn't necessarily have to have that. You can have it as well that there's very rarely a dog there, or it can be done virtually, that 4-H members are learning from in their own homes about dogs, and then having that experience at home with their own dog, learning or learning other ways, even if they don't have a dog in the home. For some 4-H members, it might be a case of maybe grandma and grandpa have a dog, but they can't have a dog where they live. And so they get to learn how to be comfortable around dogs and learning about dogs for when they're out and about. So this project does cover a lot of different areas. And within this project, there are 8 different sections and a total of 14 different meetings. And within some of those meetings are quite large and could probably be split into 2 meetings because there is so much content to cover. So within this project, the first section, Introduction to Dogs, is just that, starting to do with the history of dogs and how we came about to having dogs as companions. So with the Introduction to Dogs, that is just 1 meeting. Moving on into canine breeds, there's actually 3 meetings under this umbrella. So looking at breeds of dogs, but also looking at communication and behavior, as well as learning how to pick the right puppy and what type of dog is right for each situation. So not all dogs do well in each situation. Some dogs are very active dogs. They need to be busy and maybe aren't best suited for an apartment. Other dogs are maybe not suited for homes with children and those sorts of things. So getting to know a lot more about different types of breeds and their needs, and also learning about dog behavior as well. In section 3, Canine Health, this is probably the biggest section of the entire project. There are 4 meetings within this section, and most of the meetings are fairly big. There's a lot to cover when it comes to health, looking at things like anatomy and physiology, the diseases that dogs get, parasites, all those sorts of things, grooming, and not just grooming for looks, but grooming for health as well for the dog. The section number 4, canine nutrition and exercise, there's 1 meeting there, looking at the digestive system of the dog and what the nutrient requirements are for a dog, and why exercise is so important and how that goes hand in hand with nutrition as well for overall health for the dog. Section number 5 has 2 meetings within it. There's basic training and obedience. So the first meeting within this section looks at learning basic commands so that you have a well-mannered dog. So things like sit, stay, come, all those sorts of things, learning how to walk on a leash properly and be able to heel properly. And then moving on into more of the obedience and looking at things like obedience trials and things like that. And if that's the desire of the 4-H member to move on to maybe a little more of a competitive side with their dog and doing some of those sorts of things. Section number 6 is where a lot more of the competitive side comes into things. And so when we were setting this up and when we talked with the advisory committee, one of the things that we wanted to make sure with this project was that if the club wanted to look at things like confirmation and that kind of stuff, that information was there, but that it wasn't necessary that a club had to do that there was lots of other sections for clubs to cover, and that the club could focus on whatever area that they want to focus on. So once again, based on the wishes of the leaders and the members as to what they want to learn, it could be learning about dogs and that, but it also could be if you want to go into the show ring and what do we need to know. And so that's where section number 6 comes into play, learning about conformation of dogs of different breeds, the showing dogs and what all is involved with that, and looking at sportsmanship as well, and making sure that we're grooming 4-H members that are gracious when they're going into the ring, no matter whether it's dogs or any other type of livestock. We want to enforce that sportsmanship attitude as well within all of our 4-H members. Section number 7 is actually, it's a really quite a fun section, the agility training and performance events. And going into this, I knew of a number of performance events. I didn't realize just how many there were though, and our advisory committee was very helpful with this section. They listed off a lot more activities that you could do with your dog than I ever realized. So this, in addition to agility, this section covers off a lot of different activities, things like lure coursing and dock dog jumping and scent trials and Schutzhund, and there's just so many different activities out there for dogs and competitions for dogs, things like cart pulling and all those different sorts of things. So a really fun section. Once again, it's a fairly large section in that there are a lot of different activities for people to do with their dogs, and they could both be done as fun activities at home, or there's competitions out there as well that people can enter into. The last section looks at careers for both us as humans, in relating to careers that in working with dogs, as well as careers for dogs. So for us as humans, I know I've mentioned a few already, things like working in a veterinary clinic, or working as a police officer with the canine unit, things like working in a shelter, or dog training, or working with therapy dogs. There's just so many different areas that that can involve working with dogs. And then on the flip side, the kind of like dogs with jobs kind of thing, different things that dogs are used for. A lot of the typical things that we think of as guide dogs for the blind, for the deaf, but also therapy dogs for those with anxiety issues, reading buddies, and that for children at school, as well as dogs that go to hospitals for therapy visits, and then also your canine dogs, whether they're scent tracking dogs, whether they're cadaver dogs, whether they're used for apprehending criminals. There's so many different areas that dogs are used for as well, and a lot of different areas to explore as well, and a few new things in there that I hadn't thought of either before creating this unit. So lots of different areas to cover within this project. One of the activities, and going back to that section 2 with communication and behavior, and even though this might not be the most exciting section for our 4-H members, it's probably, in my mind, probably one of the most important sections. And this is one of the activities that can be done, and is a program that is across North America called the Be a Tree program. And within this program and within this unit within the Canine Project, it helps members to become more comfortable around dogs. So not everybody is comfortable around dogs, and sometimes some of our young people are sometimes too comfortable around dogs, and sometimes forget that even though this might be their best friend, it's still an animal, and they can, and that even the most gentle dog could potentially have a bad day and could lash out. And so we want to make sure that our 4-H members learn about body language of dogs, and when dogs just aren't comfortable in the situation, and when sometimes something unfortunately bad could happen. There are a number of dog bites each year in Canada and in North America, and I know within the project it does talk about numbers of dog bites, and we want to make sure that we minimize that, and that we teach our members the proper way to be around dogs, what is safe, and what to do if a dog does come at them, and the fact that running away is probably the worst thing that they could do, and how do we try and minimize the threat or the risk of being injured by a dog. So this is in my mind quite an important section. Like I say, probably not the most exciting. It's not as exciting as learning about dock jumping with dogs and working with the dog and grooming and obedience and all those sorts of things, but a very important section for our members to learn. So the next slide is an activity out of the project. It's from breeds of dogs. So this is another one that if you are so inclined, if you can think of any answers, please definitely put them in the chat section of the on your Zoom screen. This is an activity to help with learning about the different breeds of dogs, and to get members thinking more about the variety of different breeds. So within this activity, the challenge is for members to come up with as many different breeds with a name to that breed as possible. So the example on the screen there is Smelly the Beagle, because beagles track and sniff. So they do a lot of sniffing and smelling, so that could potentially be a name for a beagle. So the challenge that is put out to members is how many other names can you come up with a name that relates to something that the dog is known for. So so I'm going to keep talking, but if you think of names, by all means, start putting them in the chat section. Worldwide, and I know my French isn't great, so I'm probably not going to pronounce this just exactly right, but the Fédération Cynologique Internationale, so FSCI, but also commonly known as the World Canine Organization, they recognize about 340 breeds of dogs worldwide. In Canada, we have the Canadian Kennel Club, so it's also known as the CKC. And in Canada, there are 175 different breeds of dogs that are recognized in Canada in 7 different groups of types of dogs. So they're grouped by, I'll see if I remember them all here. So we have sporting, non-sporting, herding, hounds, terriers, toys, and there's one I'm forgetting. So, but yeah, we do have 7 different breeds. So I don't know, Marianne, if anybody's come up with any names so far. If not, I have a few more to add to the list. But
there's a few questions, Elizabeth, but no names for the beagles yet.
Oh, no names. So, so I know with this activity, some of the other suggestions could be like things like Paddle, the retriever, since retrievers like to swim.
One just came in. We've got Maple for a red fox lab. And then we have Tracker, the search dog.
Excellent. So yeah, no, those are great. So yeah, and as members would work through this meeting, they would get to see all the different breeds. There are all the breeds that are registered in Canada up here within the Canine Project manual. So it would help to come up with names, things like Spot the Dalmatian, or the Wooly the Border Collie is another suggestion, since Border Collies like to herd sheep. So yeah, so different things like that, and different ways of being able to get members involved and get them thinking about the different breeds that are available, and the different attributes that different breeds have. So definitely, if anybody thinks of any other names, feel free to keep adding them. I'm going to keep moving because we do have one more quick activity that we're going to do with this project. This is an activity that could be done virtually with members in their own home with their own dog. With this activity, it's funny, actually, when the project was edited, it came back that the title of this was wrong, that it should be field trip, but it is actually called a field trip with your dog. You want to make sure that the dog that you're using for this activity is a very calm and content dog, and that if the dog does become agitated as the activity progresses, that maybe we stop, and that we want to make sure that the safety is the most important thing. So I don't know, Marianne, I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute so people can see me as we do this activity. This activity could be done as well with if a member doesn't have an animal at home, they can use a stuffed animal like I have here. This is Alaska. She's a husky, and she actually did come from Alaska. My grandparents brought her with them back. All of us grandchildren got a dog when they came back. And even though it's maybe it's a little more tricky, and the idea with this activity is that you're feeling the bones within the dog. So obviously we're not doing that here, but you at least get a bit of an idea as to where the bones would be within the dog. So within the Canine Project, and within this activity, it actually comes with a script as well for leaders to go through to check out and to follow all learning where all the bones in the body are. So I'm just going to go through that really quickly. I know if you're normally doing the activity, it would take a fair bit longer, and hopefully everybody can kind of see the dog. I'm going to sit back a little so you can see the dog a little bit better. And I know each of you tonight don't have a dog with you, but this is an activity, and we'll just follow along quickly. So with this activity, you'd start at the top of the head, just around the neck, and you would feel the vertebrae that protect the spinal cord. So right in here. Then you would continue down the dog's back, and as you go down, you want to feel the separation in the vertebrae down the dog's back, and then you feel it all the way down to the end of the dog's tail. You make sure that you won't pull the tail to make sure that you don't upset the dog, though. Then looking at the dog's shoulder blades and going down that way and following down to the forechest to feel where the shoulder blade connects to the leg. So then you would want to start exploring the dog on the side and feel the ribs of the dog and feel where they circle around to the front of the chest. And when you're doing that, you also feel the dog breathing in and out. So, and that feel the ribs expanding and contracting. So then you would want to go back to the back of the dog and go back to the rump and feel on the rump and feel the hip bones on either side and feel the two bumps. And those are the hip bones there. So then you want to check out the legs on the dog and feel for the differences between the front and the back legs and feel the joints and how the joint alignment feels and how it feels differently than our joints. You also want to look at the dog and how they walk and how they walk on their toes and figure out where their heel is, which is back here, which they don't walk on, even though as humans, that's what we walk on. Dogs don't walk on their heels. Then when you feel the front, you can feel the little bones in the feet, and you have to be very gentle because the bones are very small there, and how those bones eventually reach the toes and feel how those toes are different than our toes. So when you move on to the back leg and find the knee, and you can gently feel around and feel where the knee and the patella is and how it's shaped and how it's different from there. When you go upwards, you feel the femur, and on this dog here, his back legs don't work quite as well, but you can feel the femur, which is the same as what we have in our legs that connect from our hip to our knees in a human. Then going back down, you below the knee, you would feel the two bones there, and that the same as what we have in a human. And then you feel down to the ankle of the dog, and this is the hock. And then behind the hock, you feel a thick bit of skin, and just around the back of the ankle and the heel. And just the same as in humans, this is a big tendon that helps to move the foot. And the whole time you've been doing this, you've been feeling something else, and you've been feeling the coat of the dog. So that's just really quickly going through that activity of using a live dog and making it real, to know what it feels like, rather than and bringing that diagram that's in the canine project, making it come alive with your dog. And I see that somebody's Golden just showed up just in time to do the field trip. So, and sometimes, yeah, Goldens are sometimes the perfect dog for this. And that's actually what I have. I don't have a Golden right now, but I did, and she actually was the subject of 4-H meetings over the years, and they're wonderful for doing things like that. So I'm just going to switch back to the presentation here for a minute, and put that back up on the screen there. That's all I have for the formal part of the presentation. Just trying to get it to move to the next slide, and apparently it has frozen for right at the moment. So, well, maybe I'll stop sharing again, and I'll put my email address in the chat part. That's what was on the last screen, was my email address and my phone number, so that if you do have any questions after this evening, if any questions you haven't thought of, by all means, you can definitely send me an email, or give me a phone call. The number that will appear is my cell number. Just as everyone else, we're not in the office right now either, so you can definitely call me directly with any questions. And we're going to open it up right now as well. If anybody has any questions right at the moment about any of our new projects and how they might work. So
Elizabeth, we did have a couple of questions come in through your presentation, so thank you everybody for submitting those. The first one is, how can we become involved in these projects? So as Elizabeth is putting up her email in the chat box, you can shoot Elizabeth an email and share your contact information, so how we can get a hold of you as well as where you're living, and we can connect you with the local 4-H that's going on and get you connected to, potentially to any of these 3 projects as the year goes through this year. The next question is, are there materials in place to deliver the Leadership Club via Zoom, or would it be up to the volunteers to create those slides themselves? Elizabeth, are you able to answer that one?
We don't have slides in particular, but I know even for likes of the basic leadership styles that were in the project tonight, those were actually just pulled directly from the project manual, so it is available as a PDF online. If you do have questions or are looking for something or images or that kind of thing, definitely let me know, and we can help you out with creating that those images for if you're putting together some type of presentation. We don't have a presentation per se that you would follow for the leadership project. We just have the material there, but yeah, if there is something that you want out of that project that you want a certain page or a certain activity, by all means send me an email, and we can help work you through that to help with that, making that a virtual project.
Thank you. The next question is, are there alternate formats for the new project resources? So are there other digital resources that you'd be able to point to help run these online?
Within the projects, there are suggestions throughout, and that will lead you, and sometimes it's in those green call-out boxes that I talked about, some suggestions of websites that you can go to, videos that might help to enhance the learning for that particular topic. So we do have those add-ons within the project, or websites that you can go to that have further information or potentially have some type of activities that you could use to help to enhance the project. So we do try and include that as much as possible, as many resources as we can to help you with delivering the project.
Great. The last question that I had here was, are there any recommendations on how to break the Canine Club up to deliver it over several years?
Once again, I guess it would depend on the interest of the members, as to and to their knowledge level. To me, actually, the way the meetings are laid out right now, starting with that introduction to dogs, it does progress through. So if you did want to start in year 1 with the introduction of dogs, and then maybe look at doing breeds of dogs and those sorts of things, and then the next year moving on into canine health, and maybe even doing a full year of just canine health. It does depend on the club itself, though, too, if they maybe want to do one meeting on nutrition and then another meeting on activities that you can do with your dog, and if the focus is that they want to show dogs, then it is set up that you can take each meeting and run it by itself, or if you want to work kind of the way through learning the foundation of the dogs and then working your way up to competition, it can work that way as well. So it does really depend on the group as to how you would want to maybe structure that, but it's definitely something I can help you work through as well if you do have further questions on setting that up for your particular group. So yeah, the club, it does offer flexibility as to what you want to make of that project.
Another question that has come in, Elizabeth, is does 4-H Ontario typically leave the age ranges up to the associations, or are there recommendations for member ages or range for the projects?
For most projects, we design them so that they can be for that full 9 to 21-year-old age range. Within each project, we do have digging deeper activities, which tend to be for senior members, so that especially if a senior member has taken the project before and wants to go further into the project, that there is more there for them. We do leave it up to the leaders as to what age range they're most comfortable with. So as for associations, I don't know if there are associations out there that do set any type of parameters. We as 4-H staff will stand behind you if you decide that you feel a topic is more suited for senior age. Some leaders prefer the younger age range and will do a project. I know in our area, just as an example, in the past it's happened that for the younger age range they do the Animal Friends project and learning more about companion animals, and then kind of typically that 9 to 14-year-old age range, and then 15 and over will do the veterinary project. So just so that, because veterinary sometimes does tend to be a little more in depth, but I do know other areas that do veterinary and they do the full age range of 9 to 21. So it does come back a bit to what the leaders are comfortable with, and what they want, what age range they would like to work with, and what age range they think is most suitable for that material.
So we have a question around when activities will be arranged, and is it on weekends or holidays? So I think that goes back to, Elizabeth, what you were just saying around the volunteers being able to set up that time frame that works best for them and the participants in their club, so that they're able to get the most learning opportunities out of those projects. Do you have anything to add to that, Elizabeth, around that?
No, I would echo that as well, is that, yeah, that typically, yeah, it's whatever works best for the leaders and for the members in the club. And we also do have the flexibility with our projects that typically our projects are those 6 meetings and 2 hours each for a total of 12 hours instructional time. But they don't necessarily have to be that. If you wanted to have 4 meetings that were 3 hours long each, that's fine. We don't have a set amount of meetings that you have. If, say, it worked for 2 Saturdays for 6 hours each, you could do that. Our recommendation is to try and have a minimum of 4 meetings and stretch things out, and that over the course of a bit of time. We also do have the flexibility that some clubs will meet every week, once a week for 6 weeks. Some clubs will meet once a month, depending on the topic that they're doing. If it happens, sometimes if it's a gardening project, they may stretch it out over the full 6 months of the growing season. So once again, yeah, we really leave it up to the leaders and leave it flexible, that we let them do what works best for them.
And that's all of the questions that have come in so far, Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, I see we're past our hour time allotment for this, so I don't want to keep everybody too long tonight. But definitely, like I said, if you do have any more questions, both Marianne and myself are definitely open to answering those questions and working you through the process for this project, or if you do have questions about any of the other projects that we do offer, whether it's the provincial project that's available through our website, or if it's a locally submitted project that you're looking for, definitely contact me and we'll make sure you get hooked up with the information that you're looking for, so that we can make sure that you have what you need in order to be able to lead your 4-H clubs. So with that, with no more questions, I want to thank Marianne for monitoring things tonight while I was chatting away. And I want to thank each of you for joining this evening, but also for your enthusiasm for the 4-H program. I know it's a little bit more challenging these days, and we thank you for being a part of the 4-H program and making sure that we can give these opportunities to our 4-H members. So with that, we'll sign off for tonight. But like I say, the door's always open if you have questions. By all means, that's what we're here for. So thank you for joining tonight, and I hope you enjoy what's left of your evening.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.